Hi, this is Michelle Goldman with Java 2 Week 1 and want to go over the project based off of the rubric. A big part of this was utilizing fragments so that the UR would be able to query a remote API as well as have an input to be able to query that remote API. So if we click on search, the default search comes up, which has Android as a search term, and then I click on a list item and it shows the author, publisher, and date. I had an issue with the title not coming through, so I took that field out, and I'm just using a dummy image for the books since I didn't have time to work with pulling the images from Google. If we put in a search term and search, it is querying Google Books, and then here are the listings that we get based off of the search parameters. So all of that's working. Just to look at the code a little bit. Okay, on the design side, so here's my main activity, linear layout, which is encasing two other linear layouts, and that's where both of them having an equal weight of 1 will show up on half of the screen. And then in the book list fragment, that's what that fragment will look like when it loads. And in the details fragment, and that's what it will look like when it loads, as we already saw. That is what it looks like. Now let's look at the actual code. Alright, so in my main activity I kept that pretty light, and I'm just loading the fragments here for the list and for the detail. So I've got those, and then I'm also implementing the interface that I set up in one of my other classes. And that's all I have in my main activity. My book fragment is where the majority of the work is actually being done, and that's where my async task is. That was another part of the requirements, is having that async task, which is then accepting that query from the user and being able to connect. Doing the connectivity check for the network is also another part of that carried over from last month. So here we have checking the network, loading the default Google API, no network connection, loading the stored search results, and that's with no search parameters. And then if a user puts in search term, then it's being loaded in here to account for that and pulling that information. And the other part is being able to store the API data in a serialized format, which I have implemented serializable here, and the other requirement being the private static final long serial version UID. And then the third part is making sure that the elements you're working with are serializable. And that's part of why I didn't do the images also, because they are not. So I have those elements as well. And let me just show you. Let's come back to the app. Oh, close that. And so if we turn off the Wi-Fi, turn off the network, and come back, then I'm still able to pull this information as if the app was online and get those results here. I think for me the hardest part was understanding the different information that was presented for saving with the internal external files in conjunction with the preferences. That got a little murky for me, and I'm still not quite sure if what I've got working here for my data class and where I'm reading and writing from files is in fact actually doing that, but it seemed to me like it was. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to get those search results while the device is offline.